Welcome back to the Overplayed podcast, the home of sports and sports gaming in your ear every single Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, live on Twitch at Overplayed Pod, or on Thursdays around 3 p.m. Eastern, your favorite podcast app, whether it's Spotify, Apple, Mick Foley's podcast app, if he's probably coming out with one, because Mills is probably having one underneath the beanie that he wears every single episode. But I'm GoodGameBro, and again, the gentleman over there who actually has hair underneath the beanie, surprise, surprise, is Mills. Mills, how you doing?
Hairline rises a little higher every day, believe me. I went and got my haircut the other day, and like there were grays, and I've had grays before, don't get me wrong, but there were noticeable grays looking into the mirror that I could see in the side of my hair. Forget the beard. The beard's had it for years. Like I could see them clearly on the side of my head, and I was like, I'm gonna dye my hair. I don't know what color I'm going yet. I'm just gonna dye the whole thing. It's the only thing I can.
You want to make a bet?
A bet about what? And what am I going to lose? I've already shaven my face. You've seen the surface area of Jabba the Hutt under this chin. Like shaving my head off is not going to make it any worse.
Honestly, I think we just make a bet about your hair color. I don't know what it's going to be, but we have a bet.
So I will say the lady has been the lady Faye always has dyed her hair for years. Okay. She has been kind of poking the bear of saying, to go blue. And not like a bright blue, but like
ninja blue.
Okay. I won't say like ninja blue either. More like blue, kind of like highlights, but no bleaching involved. No bleaching, none of that stuff. Just like straight up, go blue. And then she has like some kind of coloring that doesn't involve lighteners and stuff. I think it could look good. Maybe go blue in the head, blue in the beard. Go the eyebrows, the whole thing. Might go Papa Smurf. You never know.
Or just shave everything. Eyebrows, hair, beard.
I mean, I don't think I could. I'll be honest with you. All right, so the beard's one thing, okay? Losing the beard is one thing. I legitimately do not think I could go without with my head shaved again. I've done it once when I was younger, and I've talked about this before. My head looked like Mr. Peanut, and that's not even an exaggeration. I legitimately looked like Mr. Peanut. You could have put a monocle and a top hat on me and pranced me around and sold cashews.
I'm more concerned with the fact that you were more protective over your hair on top of your head than your eyebrows.
I'm absolutely more.
That's a no starter.
The eyebrows grow back so much faster. So much faster. I might look weirder without eyebrows, but I'll tell you right now, without my hair, I'm much too vain for that.
I'll take your word for it. Other than fantasizing about dyeing your hair gray, not dyeing it gray, sorry. What were we up to this weekend?
All right, so couple of big time game releases, non-sports for that. I'm still enjoying Madden. They're going through a Super Bowl promo in like MUT now, the normal stuff. They actually had a really cool promo where if you ran 5 miles in the Nike app, you get like an Aaron, but it's an Aaron Donald with increased like plus 10 speed. So and in the Nike app, I have found you actually have to do running. It doesn't just like follow you around. Like you have to start a run in the Nike app. So did that, almost died. But real talk, Dying Light 2 came out. I am been such a massive fan of this game, playing with it. It's the parkour combat is fantastic. It's if you like Dying Light 1, it is more Dying Light. But that's not the best game that has come out since the last time we've talked. But far and away, and this has got a real candidacy for Game of the Year. And that's Sifu. It's a game that came out. It's PlayStation and PC. It is a brawler from the makers of Absolver. I don't know if you remember that game. It was more of a multiplayer, but the mechanics are a fighting game. There are so many just cool animations, blocks, learning how to go through it. It's roguelike, so you can learn skills, die, and come back with those skills. But the coolest thing is the aging mechanic. Every time you die in any run, you gain a year. And every time you cross a decade, you cross your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your damage buffs and your health debuffs. So, and you can unlock things for one run, or you can spend 5 times the cost and unlock them permanently. So through all of your runs. So it's one of those things is the more you play it, if you're not good at it, you'll learn it. But you'll also get abilities for playing longer. But if you're really good at it, Like, you can go through with just a couple abilities, unlock them, and I think I've gotten through the first 2 of 5 bosses. Storyline is kind of Kill Bill, you know. Five ninjas killed you. You're going back to take your revenge. So it's a fantastic experience. Anyone that hasn't played it, anyone that likes fighting games, beat 'em ups, third person like action RPGs, I honestly would say everybody under that umbrella should try Sifu.
Yeah, that's high on my radar, so I didn't get to that, but I had been playing Dying Light 2, but once I finish that playthrough, Sifu is definitely on my list of games I'm jumping into ASAP, because I watched a trailer and just stylistically, not even looking at the gameplay. Like, the gameplay I was already sold on when I heard sort of a lot of their mechanic stuff, and how difficult it was, sort of like like a Dark Souls of fighting games, sort of in its own right. In some ways, but I'm super excited by that game. I cannot wait to play it. And I just saw a screenshot with like a bunch of fire in the background. I was like, man, this gives me kung fu vibes that I've been missing for a long time. So I'm super hyped for that.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the next thing I'm getting involved in, and I just purchased this today as you guys are listening. It released yesterday, and that's Lost Ark, which is, it's an MMO, so again, it's not going to be for everybody. And I'm not even a huge MMO guy, but I am a massive Diablo guy, and it's Diablo in playstyle. It's essentially a Diablo MMO. For me, that's God tier. I could play Diablo games for hours on end and not come up for air and enjoy every bit of it. And from what I've seen, I watch a couple of big streamers play it. I 100% fell in love with it watching it play, and I can't wait to get elbow deep in one of those. I can tell you right now, people in my social life or love life or family life, none of them want to see me get involved in it, because elbow deep means I'm going underground for like a couple of days. So
yeah, no show next week because Mills is going to be too deep into Lost Ark, probably.
It's very possible. It's very possible.
You're just me next week. Speaking of things that are coming up in the near future, the NBA trade deadline, Mills. Oh, no, actually, no, I'm skipping ahead. I'm sorry.
No.
Two legends. One that made a bird explode.
Yes.
How hype are you for the legend? First of all, I'll let you reveal who these people were, and then how hype were you for these reveals that came in MLB The Show 22 today?
So the first legend we saw in the game, it was a gameplay trailer today for MLB The Show 22. It's their first gameplay reveal, more of a sizzle trailer than a real gameplay trailer, I think. The first one we saw was Ryan Howard. Shelfie's a big fan. Ex-Philly. I don't know if he's Hall of Fame material, but like in his day, he was a monster lefty, first baseman with an okay glove, didn't really play a lot of good defense, but the bat doesn't lie. The dude's going to hit absolute tanks. But the second one is someone that's been requested for years, and that's the big unit Randy Johnson. The only person not afraid of Randy Johnson was Chris Hoyles, catcher for the Orioles, the big unit killer. But we saw, and you see a screenshot of it up here in our little picture-in-picture. Randy Johnson has that Chris Sale appeal in Diamond Dynasty. He comes from like a 3/4 down, top-tier fastball, amazing slider. He is going to be filthy, and they always tend to juice the stats of the first-year guys, so I cannot wait to see what they're going to do with Randy Johnson.
Yeah, Randy Johnson is a 6'11" tall human being on the mound who's physically imposing from like a height standpoint, and the dude's arms are just like go gadget length. So yeah, I think he's going to be absolutely fun. I think of the two legends they revealed today, I think Ryan Howard. Why am I blanking? Is it Ryan Howard?
Yeah, Ryan Howard.
Yeah, Ryan Howard. My brain just could not even go. But Ryan Howard, obviously, the power he's going to have is going to be insane. I'm sure at least one of his cards is going to be so unbelievably deadly that you were just not going to want to throw a fastball or hang a curveball at all against him. I think Randy Johnson is going to be, to your point, like one of the best legends I think that comes out this year for sure.
Yeah, even like low tier Chris Sale cards play well, and Sale has that exact same motion that Johnson used to have. The other thing that we did learn today, by the way, Ben Verlander of the Flippin' Bats podcast interviewed Ramon Russell regarding some of the gameplay upgrades. One of the big upgrades for this year is they went back and kind of tore the code out for two-way players, having Shohei Ohtani on the cover. Go check that out, by the way. The Flippin' Bats podcast over Ben Verlander does a great job. But so the two-way players are now going to correctly be used. So you're going to be able to use two-way players not only in Diamond Dynasty, but apparently they went back into Road to the Show and franchise mode.
Thank God.
That's what I'm hearing. I have not
franchise mode upgrade.
Sorry, right. But the last year you could do two-way players in franchise mode. It's just like Shohei Ohtani got overly had a real bad stamina issue because they didn't know how to develop the stamina and manage it between being on the mound and not being on the mound, and the computer AI was completely lost. Apparently they went back in, tore out all the code for two-way players. We're going to see them in Road to the Show in a better way, even though they started to do that last year. Franchise should be upgraded March to October, and then in Diamond Dynasty, we should start seeing two-way players be more prevalent. The one question I have there is, in Diamond Dynasty, you can use your creative player. I wonder if we're going to start seeing more starting pitchers in creative players in Diamond Dynasty who can really start to, tank balls.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I hope this is a small complaint, but I hope at least from a franchise and a Road to the Show standpoint that the awards part is fixed, because you either were categorized as a pitcher or as a hitter, and they didn't value what you were doing on both sides of the diamond or whatever. So from an all-star game selection or from a winning an award selection, you were literally just viewed as solely a pitcher or solely a hitter based on whichever one you were doing better at, which is a little frustrating.
But obviously, we don't know 100%. But putting Ohtani on the cover is a massive flashlight on everything Ohtani does in the game. I would be surprised if two-way players had too many bugs going on. Obviously, games have bugs, especially sports games, 1 year turnaround time. But my guess is they put a ton of focus on making sure this worked throughout the game before they decided to put Ohtani on the cover. What would be really cool is I really hope we can do Road to the Show players where we can do like a shortstop pitcher instead of just like an outfield pitcher, like someone like that does both. You could do that last year, but in franchise, it was a little wonky. So I hope that's something we can do more of. I'd love to be able to see different positions that come in as pitchers, because a lot of closing pitchers, I don't know how much you know about this, but like I won't say a lot, most position players that turn into pitchers aren't really outfielders. We have the Rick Ankiels of the world, the Shohei Ohtanis, but a lot of them came from the shortstop or catcher position where arm strength is prevalent. So a lot of those guys have a lot of top tier fastballs already. Top tier, man. I want to move on because we got a big show coming up, and you want to talk about top tier. Some big names up on the NBA trade block, and I'm not sure if all of them move or not. So I guess we will see. Man, I really, really hope that we see James Harden get traded. We'll talk about that here in a second. But the biggest trade that I've seen so far is Caris LeVert going to the Cavs.
Wow.
And that's massive because the Pacers weren't done after that. The Pacers continued to make moves after that, obviously reworking their entire team. But Caris LeVert going to the Cavaliers is a massive move of the Cavs, who needed another superstar to go along with Darius Garland, Jarrett Allen, that crew. And they really didn't give up. I mean, they gave up picks, and they gave up Rubio, who, did anyone know you could trade injured players? Joe Ingles? It was really weird for me, but I think Caris LeVert is going to fit very well in Cleveland, especially considering he plays that swing role that they need more bodies at.
Yeah, so I think there's a particular designation for injured players. I think a lot of times we're used to what happens in sports games where in Madden or NBA 2K or FIFA or whatever, if you have an injured player, good luck trying to trade him. It's an immediate nope, can't do that. But in the real world, if there's necessarily an agreement and then shared doctor information, they can be traded. We saw Joe Ingles obviously in that most recent trade. When I watched the Pacers do this, my thought was like, the heck are you doing? But then I thought they have to have another trade, right? The Pacers are an organization that they haven't been top tier recently. They obviously have a long history of being great for a long time, but they've been sort of like middle of the water, pushing up a little bit here and there, but not really being great. I love the Caris LeVert trade at the Cavs. I think that's going to be an absolutely monster player. You get now a wing guy. You can pair him with a Coro and let those guys share minutes, obviously, there. They have guards for days. They have bigs for days. I think the Cavs still need maybe a playoff big man to help with the foul situation, right? To help with some of these bodies that are going to be coming through. If you got to play Milwaukee, you definitely need an extra big man to help absorb some fouls on Giannis and be super tough on him. But I looked at the Pacers roster after. I'm looking at it right now. They still have Brogdon. You now have Chris Duarte, and then you had Tyrese Halliburton, who is the absolute gem that they got immediately after. Buddy Hield, I believe, has like another 1 or 2 years in his deal, so he's a valuable contract you can essentially trade around and probably get, a draft pick compensation at some point. Rubio's obviously going to be an expiring contract. I don't hate what they were doing because they're building for the future. They got Halliburton, who is going to be an absolute star for the Pacers, and they can now go into the draft prepared to obviously see what the future is. Going after big men, Sabonis, you got great value for him now.
Hmm?
I initially hated what they did, but I think that honestly that trade is going to work out for both once I saw the Sacramento side for Indiana.
I'll be honest, I think the Kings got fleeced. I really do.
Oh, sure.
I like Sabonis, don't get me wrong, but Sabonis doesn't fit with that roster at all. At all. That is the weirdest fit of this trade deadline for me so far. I think I agree with you. Tyrese Halliburton is going to flourish in Indiana. What they've done there to surround Halliburton with, again, like you said, Brogdon, and Miles Turner. The big surprise of this is Miles Turner is probably going to stay a Pacer because he's going to get the time that Sabonis was taking from him back, and he's going to get a chance to really grow too.
There were rumors he might go to Toronto, so I think we still should watch out for that. Obviously, the trade deadline is tomorrow. For those of you that are listening to the audio version, is today for the podcast on Thursday. But I hope they keep Turner because I love Miles Turner, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets traded to a team like Toronto.
I think they're done. I think they had to trade one or the other, and I think the reason they got rid of Sabonis is so they could keep Turner. I really do. The way that lineup looks right now, I think the trade was Jeremy Lamb, Justin Holiday, a second-round pick for Halliburton, Hield, and Tristan Thompson. So Thompson moves into that backup role to Miles Turner. Like you said, Hield runs the outside with Brogdon and Halliburton. I think that's a competitive team already. I think I hate to say this because I respect the hell out of Domantas Sabonis, but I think the Pacers are a better team today than they were 3 days ago. I really do. I wouldn't be surprised if we see De'Aaron Fox move from the Kings. The team that I think isn't done is I don't think the Kings are done. Because there's been rumors about Fox all year. And obviously, if you're getting rid of Hield, you're bringing Sabonis back. I don't think Sabonis is going to stay in Sacramento long.
No.
Yeah, I think Fox is going to be another piece. This is Sacramento essentially going, hey, we built what Luke Walton wanted. This didn't work. That's the way it is. I mean, new coach, he wants to bring his guys in. Sabonis is not going to be one of those guys. There's no way Sabonis stays in Sacramento. They're back at, you hate to say it, they're back at square one again. I feel bad for Kings fans, man, because how many times have we seen this Kings team start right back from scratch? I think they should have given Walton more of a chance. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any coach, I don't care who you have, even if we actually brought Rick Adelman back from those days. Like, I don't even think that Rick Adelman is going to be able to coach that current roster, even especially now that they're molded. I don't think Sabonis stays there. Sabonis, I would love selfishly to see him go to Portland.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Portland here in a second. They'll have cap space, obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
But I would be kind of surprised if De'Aaron Fox gets traded now. I could still see something happening with like a 3-team trade that involved the Knicks and De'Aaron Fox going there because they're obviously out on Kemba. They still have Emmanuel Quickly, who's obviously really good and a young player, but I could see De'Aaron Fox going and playing there and playing that up-tempo style that Thibodeau wants, and also maybe being back to being a defender. I know he had a while where he was a really good on-ball defender, and that sort of wavered, but again, my NBA Siberia reference of the day, you playing an NBA Siberia, you're probably going to give out on one side of the ball. It's more than likely going to be defense.
So I guess after that, let's talk about Portland, because Portland has gotten rid of everybody. Everyone that's not named Dame Lillard, essentially. Powell's gone. McCollum went to New Orleans, and then from the pieces they picked up from New Orleans, they made another trade that involved the Jazz. What is this the restart from Portland? And if so, what are they going to do about Dame Lillard?
I feel terrible for Dame Lillard. Look, Damian Lillard is one of the better players in the NBA who gets no real love and recognition. If he played in a major market, right? If he was playing in a New York or an LA or even somewhere, I think just on the East Coast in general, it doesn't even have to be a major market, but if he played on the East Coast, he would be a much larger name. But again, you're playing in Portland, you're playing typically those later night schedules. Not enough people really, the casual NBA fans are really respecting, I think, the game that he has. I think the number one issue here is twofold. One, that ownership and GM scenario is just not working in Portland. I don't know if they're trying to sell the team and cut cap space, or they say they're rebuilding and doing a quick rebuild or whatever. Damian Lillard made a fatal mistake, in my opinion. I am a firm believer in you never tell your boss that you are happy and you'll always be here, that you're ready for no matter what. I am a firm believer you never do that, especially in sports. Don't do it in real life in your day job. Definitely don't do it in sports because what does that ownership see? We can throw away a season. We can just give up. We don't have to be a competitive team. We're going to sell tickets because Damian Lillard's still here, and Damian Lillard is a ride or die for this organization. Damian Lillard made a major misstep, I think, in telling the Pacers, the Trailblazers, that he was there for the grind, quote unquote. Now they're saying they're going to have I think roughly 60 mil in cap space after the Alexander Walker trade and that whole movement. But the number one problem isn't cap space, I think, for them. It is they have not been able to get stars to come to Portland to play with Damian Lillard. If he was in a different market again, I think that changes. But they drafted CJ McCollum. CJ McCollum was a great tandem pair for Dame. Him and CJ, when they were healthy, were fantastic to watch. Larry Nance is actually filling a really good role for them. And now they gave him to the Pelicans, who are going to have great depth, especially when Zion comes back, assuming he's healthy. You are not going to get a major star who is going to want to commit long term to Portland. It just doesn't happen in today's NBA because they have seen over the past years the Trailblazers have made the playoffs since 2013, 2014 season. They've been in the playoffs every year since then. Dame has been carrying different versions of that team, some better than others, some carcasses that have been injured nonstop, not able to go, whether it's Nurkic or CJ McCollum or someone else. And they brought in Powell, who was actually a great compliment to help them out too from a scoring standpoint. And they just blew it all up. He's going to be 32 this offseason. Lillard will be 32 this offseason. This is the second or third time they've blown up that roster to try to do something to sort of make things work, and it hasn't. Just trade that man. Get him out of Portland. Let him have a chance for the rest of his career to win a championship.
And I've talked multiple times about how infatuated I am with how good Powell is as a two-way player when he came over from Toronto. I agree. I thought they had the pieces. They just didn't really, I guess, they didn't really bring in the glue guys, as I like to say. I will say this. They better not miss with any signing this offseason. They better hit every single signing this offseason, because if not, they're going to have a real big problem. I agree with you. Never tell your boss your loyalty to your job. Absolutely don't, because you lose every single bit of leverage you have, especially in sports. And Dame did that. Dame tried to do the feel-good story of, I'm not going anywhere. I'm a Blazer guy. I'm not leaving Portland. And they did exactly what you said. Oh, really? Okay. Well, we're just going to tear the team down around you and then retry to build it up next year. Unfortunately, if you look at the free agency coming up, they're not going to be able to rebuild too much around Dame Lillard, as you said, 32 years old. I do want to talk about one team affected by all these trades before we move on to some possibilities upcoming in the next 24 hours. The New Orleans Pelicans made some interesting moves, got rid of some youth, brought in CJ McCollum, okay, who's day-to-day, who's injury-filled, to play alongside of Brandon Ingram, Devontae Graham, whenever Zion comes back, which is looking more and more like it might not be this season, and JV and Jackson Hayes. This team is sneakily kind of really good and can throw about 10 guys at you when healthy. Do you think the Pelicans did this to try to convince Zion, hey, look, we really are trying to win here. If once you get healthy, let us know. Let's get you back on the court and let's get this thing moving?
I think for sure. But I think they're also building up an asset list in the case of we're kind of screwed and we have to do something else outside of Zion, right? I do think Zion is back this year. I saw a couple of reports about him losing the weight that we saw in the Mountain Dew commercial, where you could obviously tell that he put on significant pounds. Just when you have a foot injury or an athlete, that's going to happen, right? Especially when you're a guy that maybe struggles a little bit in balancing some of that just sort of naturally. But I think Zion is going to be back like March to mid-March. I think after the All-Star break, they're sort of letting him get this time. There were photos of him actually on the court and looking in significantly better shape than what he was recently. So I do think we will see Zion back more so in March. To what degree, I don't know. But again, getting Larry Nance, I think it's going to help them significantly, especially on the defensive end and controlling the boards. Jackson Hayes has had a lot of different issues throughout his young career, but the Jackson Hayes we're seeing over the last 2 to 3 weeks is the Jackson Hayes I think the Pelicans thought they were going to have when they drafted.
Absolutely.
He's a 7-footer who's 21, 22 years of age, can dribble a good bit, and he made some moves the other night with a Euro step that I'm like, yo, a 7-footer doesn't do that unless their name is Giannis Antetokounmpo. So I really like what they have in Hayes as well. But you're right, they are deep. They've built some stuff. If CJ is healthy, if Zion is healthy, That's a lot of people. I know playoff rotations slim down. You go from like maybe a 12-man rotation down to probably like a 9 or 10, depending on how deep you are in the postseason. But even if a guy gets day-to-day injured, they still have other bodies to throw with them. And I like that. I do worry, though, getting rid of Josh Hart does ruin a lot of their perimeter defense.
Yeah, it does.
It's going to mean that Herb Jones has to pick up a lot of their perimeter defense. It's going to mean that Tony Snell, who they also got in that trade, is going to have to be one of their primary defenders. But I still think they need a little bit more defense than what they have. But again, that team with Zion back healthy and CJ healthy is an offensive powerhouse for sure.
Zion comes back, and Brandon Ingram only gets that much better. I love what Ingram has done. I love that he started off slow and has really built back up through the season. He's averaging 23, 6 rebounds, and 5.5 assists right now at a 19.06 PER, which is 44th in the league. Now, you're talking about what in all rights is going to be the third dog in that fight for them. That's a really good third dog to have, and he can play pretty good defense too. So, let's talk real quick about what could be on the horizon. First of all, James Harden for Ben Simmons has been talked about multiple times. We have got conflicting stories right now. We got Windhorse from ESPN saying that they're really close to a deal that's going to send Harden, and I think they want to send Harden to the 76ers for Simmons and another piece. But then Woj, about an hour before we started recording, went on and said that deal isn't actually close. Daryl Morey reached out to the Nets January 11th, and that's where the conversations kind of fizzled out. Not sure who to believe here, but there's a lot of smoke under this Harden-Simmons deal. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always going to be conflicting reports. I think whenever you have a trade deadline, you're going to see teams maybe leak a little information, but teams also leak some incorrect information because they want to try to get some other people drummed up. Mills, we're old. We know how this sort of works. So I'm not surprised by there being the disparity between the different reports. But the thing that is the most concrete info we could possibly have is, did James Harden play in the previous game?
Mm-hmm.
Is James Harden playing in this game that he has tonight, I believe? No. James Harden sitting out over this hamstring issue are the biggest tells to me that there is a large possibility that he is traded. If you are the Nets, you are in a weird situation. Kyrie can only play, I think, 10 of the next 28 games that they essentially have. KD, you're obviously still waiting to see when he's going to be back and hopefully healthy. You've had multiple lower body injuries for KD now, which is obviously scary with a 7-footer, a guy who's more of a frail sort of like build, just a little bit slender. And you have Harden, who has had a really weird season. You've had games where Harden has put up almost triple-double level numbers on a consistent basis for a couple of games, and you've had games where Harden is scoring 4 points and just not looking like himself. When you see that sort of inconsistency from a world-class athlete like that, to me, that shows that they're not happy. I think James Harden would love to be in Philly playing next to Joel Embiid, and I think that is scary for the entire NBA if we have James Harden, one of the best 3-level scorers in the NBA, with Joel Embiid, who outside of Jokic you can say it's either Jokic or Embiid for your favorite big man. It just depends on your style of play that you ultimately want. That is a really nasty combo. I think Seth Curry obviously is a part of that trade, which is one of the big rumors we've been hearing. But I don't think they would be done with that. I mean, you've heard the rumors as well. Tobias Harris, they're trying to move. I think OKC probably gets involved in some capacity here to pull off one of those big salaries like that. I think this is if I'm the Nets, I make this trade now, because if you don't make this trade now, Harden can opt out in the offseason.
Yep.
And then you're forced to do a sign-and trade with wherever he essentially wants to go. And then you are just begging for parts at that point. But the team is going to give you essentially a salary match, not preferred parts. So either get something of substance, like a Ben Simmons and a Seth Curry, or just shop at the bargain bin in the offseason. It's up to them.
If you wait till the offseason, you essentially become the 76ers, who can't get rid of Simmons for anything. If you're Daryl Morey and they come back and request Seth Curry or a guy like Tyrese Maxey, are you still sending Simmons?
Yeah, I think you need to part. It's tough. There's no shot they do it without Simmons. To me, it's Simmons and Curry.
Yeah.
Or Simmons and Maxey, and I much rather do Simmons and Curry because I think Tyrese Maxey has fantastic ability to be a star for them in the future. And I think you want to keep as many guys as you can on the court. Simmons and Embiid, there's something there that's not public that we're just not seeing. I think that's a large part of this too that's going into it. So I think you just have to get a fresh start. Simmons is unbelievably talented, but you got to cut your losses at some point. If you get James Harden, you've got, again, that 3-year window we talked about for Embiid. That's a great 3-year window with Harden and Embiid there and some young players around them to hopefully make a run.
1 minute left in the trade deadline. The Nets call Daryl Morey. You're Daryl Morey. Sorry. And they say it's Simmons and Maxey for Harden, or we walk away from the table. Do you make the deal?
I say have a nice offseason, and I'll see you when we hit the sign and trade for you.
All right. The thing I worry about is I think Daryl Morey is understanding that Joel Embiid window is not going to be massive. He's a big dude who has knee and ankle injury issues. That is going to be something that he's got to be in the back of Daryl Morey's head, because if Joel Embiid if at any point Joel Embiid starts having consistent injury issues, that window closes immediately.
Agreed.
They do not have the talent on that team without Embiid to be anywhere near the top of the Eastern Conference. The other part of this now is that all the rumors, all the wildfire that's going around is that Russell Westbrook will be traded by the trade deadline if the Lakers can find a good suitor. But the story is they're not willing to get rid of their 2027 first-round draft pick, which I think is their next first-round. That's sad, by the way. That's really sad, by the way. That the next first-round draft pick they have available to trade is 2027.
Yeah.
Let's combine the problems Russell Westbrook is having right now, who is changing the way teams play defense against the Lakers and destroying them offensively, along with the story. I'm going to add a story in here. The story that LeBron James desperately wants to play with his son at some point in the NBA before he retires. And if that means not being with the Lakers, he's okay with that. This has become the worst nightmare in Los Angeles that could possibly have happened. All of these things happening at once. We know LeBron has, this is not an insult. We know LeBron has no loyalty to a team. He is loyal to his brand and to his family. So he will jump. Russell Westbrook, it's not a fit. It's not a fit. It's time to rip the Band-Aid off. What do the Lakers do here? Russell Westbrook is owed, you ready for this? $44 million against the cap this year, plus he's got a player option for next year, which would be $47 million. For those of you who aren't that are on the podcast side of this, GGB rightfully shaking his head at that money amount, because you know damn well Russell's gonna pick that option up.
100%. You're crazy not to. Yeah. That is unbelievable wealth, and then becomes additional generational wealth for your family and your family's family and your family's family, and so on and so on. Right? They're gonna be talking about great granddaddy Russ, and how he literally kept their family as some of the most influential millionaires in the world. Like, that'll be an obvious thing. I don't think the Lakers have much of an option here. You can do a trade that involves, here's the thing, you have to use the first round pick, I think, in some capacity. Any trade you do, like you maybe the only straight up trade you can do is like Russ for John Wall, because maybe Houston is just like super trying to tank at this point. They're gonna do something, but you still have to give compensation at that point. So probably Taylor Horton Tucker comes over in that as well. If you don't give a first-round draft pick, you're kind of limited to just that team. If you do throw a first-round draft pick in 2027, OKC is literally, Sam Presti is knocking on the door and saying, yeah, I'll go ahead and take that, please. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who do you want? I'll give you someone. They will do whatever they can to make something happen there. But I still don't think there's many options they can essentially have.
Not with that cap hit.
It's a really weird thing. I saw some outlandish scenario that someone was trying to say Julius Randle, and I'm like, there's no shot the Knicks are taking on Russell Westbrook unless OKC took on Westbrook again with that contract and did something where they stretched it out. But I really think this is Pelinka's problem. Rob Pelinka built the Lakers to be the Expendables. They are the NBA's version of the Expendables, with a bunch of old dudes who it was risky from an injury standpoint, from a how they played standpoint, and it was just like, we got a bunch of dudes who know how to shoot, a little bit of know how to score, and we're going to see what they can do. Westbrook, as much as I love Westbrook, he's one of the best players of all time in the NBA, and I will stand on that hill to the day I die. Russell Westbrook is playing now like NBA Twitter accused him of playing 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep.
And it's sad to see a player go through this. I don't know if it's mental or conditioning or an injury he's hiding or like whatever it may be, but you're right. This is not working. The Lakers have to blow it up. And their options are severely limited. And Pelinka's got to do something. And I don't think you keep LeBron. Like, this is going to be one of those things that pushes LeBron out of the door. when his option comes up in a year or two. I don't remember exactly when that is, but Operation LeBron leaving at some point and going maybe back to Cleveland is looking a lot better right now.
How do you think Anthony Davis feels? Anthony Davis is stuck on that team for, well, this year, next year when he's 29, he makes 30. I say stuck, making $40 million a year, by the way.
Yeah.
29 next year, 30, he's stuck, and then he has a player option when he's 31. What they've done to this roster and the fact that they're 26 and 29 as we record this is insane. And it was eventually going to come back and bite them. You cannot continuously rebuild around LeBron James over and over and over and think that it's not going to affect the long-term plans of your organization. It happened in Miami. It happened in Cleveland. Everywhere LeBron has been. This is not LeBron's fault, by the way. This is the GMs that try to build around him. Everywhere LeBron has been, he has left a wake after he leaves. Miami has rebuilt. Cleveland, well, the Cavs. What are the Cavs were bad after he left. When he left,
it hasn't been that long.
No, it hasn't. I mean, to be fair, Miami, it hasn't been that long.
I mean, we're talking 3 years. Like, if you say I can guarantee you at least one championship, and then you have maybe 3 years after where you're going to be 2 to 3 years after where you're going to be kind of pretty bad, and then you're going to be good again. I think every team takes it. I think the bigger problem here is Rob Pelinka. This, to me, is why you do not hire an agent to be a GM.
Yeah, for sure.
You look at the roster construction. This is 100% an agent's mindset and not thinking about the long-term effects. It's about paying guys, getting guys in situations, not caring about sort of the salary cap and finagling some stuff here and there, and not caring about how am I constructing a roster that is competitive now, but doesn't handicap me to be non-competitive 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years later, like the Lakers are kind of sort of going to be right now.
So just really quick, since Russell Westbrook signed a $5 year, $206 million deal in 2018, the 2018 season with the Oklahoma City Thunder, he has played for the Thunder, the Rockets, the Wizards, the Lakers, and what is going to have to be a different team next year. 5 different teams on a max deal. He is the number 1 cap hit on the Lakers. He is the number 2 cap hit for any point guard in the league. He is the number 4 cap hit in the entire league. That's Russell Westbrook. That's what they're getting out of him right now.
With probably some of the worst PER in the league.
Oh, absolutely. This is team destroying. They're absolutely destroying the entire team. Talking about destroying, I mean, I hate to say that because, my boys, every time the Major League Baseball meets with the Players Association, it gets worse. You think there's going to be progress, there's not. Now, MLB has called the courts in to try to mediate between them immediately. We're losing time in the season. I think the question right now is how much time are we going to lose, and what are the long-term effects on baseball because of this?
Maybe I'm being crazy here.
You're not.
I feel like we're not getting baseball back until June. It's not as simple as obviously like signing, agreeing to the deal, right? The negotiations take obviously a little period of time there, but I think even with that, then you have to ramp up, you have to get spring training sort of involved, you have to get guys sort of reporting, all that stuff. I don't see how they're going to go from literally not having any productive conversations now to being good by April. Maybe mid, late May, but it feels like to me this is a June start with where they are right now. And I don't even know if I feel confident about that.
I'm going to be real with you. If it doesn't start till June, they might as well just call themselves the third most important sport. And I'll never put them over hockey. No offense, hockey fans. I don't think that it's that far down. I mean, NASCAR beat the NHL All-Star Game this past weekend, but they might as well just sit themselves down under the NBA as the not only the sport that is going to be the lower rated sport, but the sport making the worst decisions. I don't blame the players here. I don't blame the owners. I don't side one side or the other here. I know a lot of people, pay the players. The owners are billionaires. MLBPA is the strongest union in the world. Okay? Let me repeat that. Above all the steam fitters unions, every union you've ever heard of, MLBPA is the strongest union, and they screwed themselves over by acquiescing every single time there's been a labor issue recently. They just want to get through it and get done, so they go ahead and say, oh, no, go ahead. This is going to be the time where you see just how important these issues are to the players. The Players Association, this is going to be the time they don't back down, and this is going to be the time that it's going to hurt the fans even more. Okay, last time we had a home run chase, steroid fueled or not, call it whatever you want, that brought fans back to the yard after that 94 strike season. This time, you're coming back off a season, or you're a season away from not having any fans in the stand due to the pandemic. You're coming off lower attendance across the league, lower TV ratings. They were just getting everything back. They literally were on the uptick. Okay, the lower ratings and all were going away. They were going away. The let the kids play movement was working.
Yep.
And you're going to ruin all of that, because everybody wants more money.
And I 100% hear you. I think previous negotiations for the MLBPA had sort of, to your point earlier, like just not taking things as seriously, not really bargain the way they should have probably bargained for what players essentially needed. And now they're paying the price by needing a much larger jump to feel what the Players Association feels is more fair. But I just know it's baseball is one of the weirdest sports. I know it's hard because there's small markets across every single sport, and it's like baseball players that make it to the major leagues, they need 6 years of MLB service before they can actually become a free agent, right? And so that's why you see if a player comes out of high school, goes to college, gets drafted, spends a couple of years in the minor leagues, it might be 24 if they're at even a younger age, at 24 when they're actually, if they're not a superstar, right? We're talking about 24 years old,
right,
coming into being a rookie. They spend 6 years in the major leagues, assuming they don't get demoted at all at that point. They spend 6 years in the majors. They now are 30, and now they can be a free agent. Whereas you look at the NBA, where guys come in, they're 19 years old if they're a really good player. They spend, I think it's a 4-year contract for an NBA player at that point. Now you're 23, hitting free agency for the very first time.
Yeah.
So think about MLB free agency and how many superstars really go into that versus the NBA when you're like, oh my God, they just got such and such a young player on a massive deal. Or even the NFL, right? Guys come in 21, I guess you could be 20, but 21, 22, when those guys come in, they have a 4-year, maybe 5-year contract. They're still in their mid-20s for a lot of these guys when they're actually going in to be a free agent. MLB has an older shift. A lot of times players burn out very quickly in the MLB. It's not very easy to stay in the major leagues as well unless you are one of those upper tier players. So
right.
It's a tough conversation, I think, across the board, but I just don't feel confident we have baseball before June. And to your point, it's like that's going to do an insane amount of damage for them, I think, long term, even more so than what we saw maybe prior.
I agree with the players getting the earlier free agency, but I want you to remember something here. The players already have guaranteed contracts. If they're cut, they get paid in full. Which is something that no other league has. I lie.
Right.
The NBA technically has that, but you can get around that in the NBA. They get the largest amount of money because of salary cap. There is no salary cap in baseball. So, and
also no salary floor.
There's also also no salary floor.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay. I agree with that. I think there should be a salary floor. I know this is going to sound crazy. I kind of want to see a salary cap in baseball. I think it's worked for other sports, and I think it would make the sport, while I do think the NFL is more mediocre than it is competitive, I would like to see baseball get on a more competitive standpoint as opposed to just revenue sharing. But whatever they do, if this lockout goes into the season, I'm with you, man. I think they're going to do irreparable damage, whereas before it wasn't irreparable. I think they repaired a lot of it. This is irreparable damage in this day and age. I just don't know how they're going to continue with that.
Yeah.
What is
I worry, but yeah.
Yeah, what hasn't been really damaged, though, although I will say there's been some damaging comments to come out of this. We talked about this last week. But it looks like all of the NFL teams that are going to make their coaching hires have done it. And we're going to lead off here. I'm going to talk about Josh McDaniels getting another shot at head coaching with the Las Vegas Raiders. He's shown time and time again he's just not a head coach. He's a fantastic offensive genius. I really do stand behind the fact that he is one of the best offensive play callers in the game. But I think under Belichick, I think it's just a different world under Belichick. Every time he's gone outside of the Belichick umbrella, it's been problems. The Raiders make a mistake here, especially with the Raiders not keeping their interim head coach who had all the players at his back.
Yeah, I think that guy, is it Rich or Rick? I can't remember how to say his last name, but he's now a special teams coach or coordinator. I forgot with what team. I don't know if it was the Packers.
It was Rich Bisaccia. Yeah, Rich Bisaccia.
Yeah. So he's now a special teams coordinator on a different team. When I saw the McDaniels news, I was like, man, this is just the Raiders being the Raiders. Like, I'm not surprised by this. The Raiders are a franchise that has not made sensible decisions for what feels like a long time. Mm-hmm. The Davis family, even though I applaud what Mark Davis is doing in the WNBA with paying Becky Hammon $1 million, even though still the players should be paid significantly more than coaches. It's a whole other topic for a different day. I just look at this hire and I'm like, this is peak Raiders. So they think they're getting a big name. They're going to tout him up. They're going to say he's going to, be the savior for whatever their QB situation happens to look like next year, because I doubt it's going to be Derek Carr. But I can't feel good about this, considering especially the news that broke not too many weeks ago about what happened with him in Denver when he was essentially like cheating, and the players knew it and they were just like, we're rolling with it. And then they found out and they're like, oh, well, crap. Like their team had a stark contrast of wins and losses immediately after they were found and busted for cheating. So I'm surprised that he got a head coaching job again. I'm surprised that the NFL wasn't like, hey, buddy, what are we doing here? But I'm not surprised with the Raiders hiring him.
Let me give you the list of head coaches that were hired. You tell me who your favorite and least favorite hires were. We got Dennis Allen going to New Orleans. Lovie Smith went to the Houston Texans. Fear the beard. Mike McDaniel to the Dolphins. Doug Peterson goes to Jacksonville over Byron Leftwich, who was in serious consideration for that job. Previously talked about McDaniels to Vegas. Brian Daboll to the Giants. Nathaniel Hackett to Denver. Matthew Eberflus to Chicago. And Jim Harbaugh left Minnesota for go back to college. He was so turned off by Minnesota, he said, I'm never going to coach the NFL again. That's how bad that is.
Throw one pass.
Yes.
He saw Kirk Cousins throw a pass.
That's all. Like, honestly, it's all I would need to see either to never come back to the NFL. Was it Kirk Cousins in daylight throwing a pass, or were there lights shining down on him? Completely two different passes being thrown there.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So the hire that I love, I think, it's weird for me to say I love, because there was someone wrongfully fired there from, I think, pretty much everyone's standpoint.
Yeah.
I did love seeing Flores get fired, but if they are going to bring in a coach, I think McDaniels is probably Mike McDaniels, the one that I'm probably the most excited about, because we saw what he was able to do creatively with that offense in San Fran. They have obviously some similar pieces. They can sort of do some really fun things there. I want to see if he can turn Tua into be the quarterback that we maybe think he is now, being a couple years more removed from that massive hip injury that nearly ended his career. I'm very excited about what McDaniel's going to do there. At the same time, the hire that I'm least excited about is Lovie Smith in Houston. I love Lovie Smith. Also, that beard is fantastic. It's what you wish you could grow. But Lovie Smith is one of those guys that is sort of like beloved, I think, for most people from an NFL head coaching standpoint. But I cannot help but get the feeling that this wasn't a couple of things. The NFL stepping in and being like, hey, McNair, we need a little bit of help here. You also could use some good PR. Let's get Lovie Smith up in here as from your coordinator now to your head coach. I feel like that was part of it. But I cannot, if this happens, I'm going to be so pissed off. Part of me just feels like this is the thing that has been happening in the NFL for an extremely long time, where a bad team fired, again, David Culley, who did not deserve to be fired with that roster and the way it was constructed. But I feel like Culley gets fired. They bring in Lovie Smith from a good PR standpoint, because Lovie is, again, so beloved, no pun intended there. And then here's what I think is going to happen. They're going to do what NFL teams do, where they fire a black head coach and then go bring in a extremely inexperienced white head coach. And I think it's going to be Josh McCown. I think they were so close to signing McCown. Everything we were hearing that when McCown was super close to being signed, I think they're going to wait for Lovie Smith to get fired. Maybe it's 2 years out instead of 1 year out, because you can't really do the whole, like, we fired Culley after a year, we fired Lovie after a year. You have to wait at least a little bit. I can't help but feel like 2 to 3 years from now, Lovie gets fired. Josh McCown miraculously surfaces up, or he's available. He was maybe a coordinator or a QB head coach or a QB coach somewhere, and then he becomes the Texans head coach, which is who they wanted all along when they finally have a roster constructed.
I agree with the Lovie Smith. I agree with what's going to happen. They don't even know what's going on with Deshaun Watson yet. They're going to bring Lovie Smith in to take the fall after 1 year and then hire the guy they wanted because they wanted Josh McCown at one point. This is going to sound weird because I was really down on this hiring when they made it, but I've completely turned around when I realized why they made it. Jacksonville was very close to hiring Byron Leftwich. And I think Byron Leftwich deserves a head coaching job in the NFL. I'm kind of happy that it wasn't with Jacksonville because I don't think that situation is good for a first-year head coach. Sure. I think bringing Doug Peterson in is a fantastic idea in Jacksonville. He is a player-first head coach. He is a locker room galvanizer. He is a guy that...
Ice cream.
Yeah, 100% brings locker rooms together, which is what, after not being able to trust Urban Meyer, the horror stories of what that roster went through with Urban Meyer there, they need somebody that's going to build trust within that team. And I think this sounds crazy with how bad their season was. I don't think Jacksonville's as bad as they played last year. I think that was a very chaotic area, and I think a lot of it was because of Urban Meyer. I think Doug Peterson turns that team around. I wouldn't be surprised, especially in the AFC South. I wouldn't be surprised to see that team go 500 next year. Well, I'm going to say above, like right around like 7 and 8. I'm sorry, 8 and 9, 9 and 8, somewhere in that area. I think they have the talent to do it. I think Trevor Lawrence showed flashes of what he could do. But again, first-year quarterback, first-year coach, trying to instill his will while Trevor Lawrence is just trying to learn. I don't think he learned anything. I think it's impossible. I just love the Doug Peterson hire.
Yeah, now that you mentioned, I don't hate that as much. I think my fear for Peterson is, do we get the Doug Peterson that was labeled a superstar head coach and was labeled the savior of the Eagles franchise, or do we get the Doug Peterson that you're like, man, him and Carson Wentz cannot figure out what the heck was going on?
Right.
I don't know, but I will say I do agree with your point though. Bringing in a more seasoned head coach who at least has dealt with quarterback struggles and got a backup QB to win a Super Bowl. God bless America. How difficult is it to win a Super Bowl now, but you won with a backup quarterback? That's insane. I do hope for Trevor Lawrence's sake that they can turn things around, because I think Trevor Lawrence is still very good. I think he showed some great flashes, but part of it was they allowed him to have a run game. Remember, they have one of the better young running backs in the league that Urban Meyer neglected and didn't use for whatever reason at that point, probably because he was too sauced to remember getting a running back.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be excited to see what the Jacksonville Jaguars can do. Let's also not forget that they have Travis Etienne coming back next year. I'm assuming he's going to play running back, maybe not wide receiver, but who knows at that point. But they should have weapons on that team, and Peterson has been able to do some really cool stuff with weapons. So I hold out some hope for them.
The hiring, just so it's on record, the hiring that I don't like is the Dennis Allen hiring with the Saints. I think that team again needs somebody that's going to be able to stir the ship or steer the ship in the right direction. Like bringing up your defensive coordinator, who, don't get me wrong, it's a great defense, and I know he had one game where he looked really good when Sean Payton was on COVID leave, but I do not think that dude's ready for what's about to happen. That mass exodus that's going to happen in New Orleans because of their cap situation. I think Dennis Allen is also getting put in a place. It's a no-win situation for him, and I don't think that's the guy they want leading a no-win ship. So that's going to be a very interesting situation to follow in New Orleans, again, especially with their cap situation. But hey, coaching, you want to talk about coaching? We talk about really well. I'm not giving Zach Taylor good head coaching yet. I'm sorry. Like he's had enough time blunders. I mean, let's be fair. There's time blunders on both sides. But this weekend we finally get it to the Super Bowl. Or hold on, sorry. The big game is on. We get the Bengals versus the Rams. Two teams that have gotten there in completely different ways. Cincinnati has drafted their way the more natural way of drafting talent, building talent up with a young head coach. Joey Burr looking really good with one of the better receiving cores in the NFL. Their defense is opportunistic. And then you have the Rams, who I don't think are going to have a draft pick for the next 10 years, who are just bringing in free agents and trades. Von Miller saying that, he's still a Denver Bronco at heart. He's just playing for the Rams. That was a actual quote this week, by the way. Jalen Ramsey coming over in a trade, Matthew Stafford in a trade. lot of pieces they've brought in, but it works. And you've seen some of the interviews with Sean McVay. I saw an interview with him on ESPN where people were asking him about when he was with the Washington football team. When they were talking about like plays, individual plays from like 5, 6, 7 years ago, and dude remembered the outcome of the play, who caught the touchdown, what happened afterward. The dude is a super genius. He looks like Megamind out there. Matter of fact, I want to see a big blue brain when he walks out. So you get the Rams, intimidating defense with some major holes on it, but overall, if they get to the quarterback, they're good. Bad offensive line with the Bengals. Better running game. I'm going to give it to the Bengals, although I'm kind of on the Cam Akers bandwagon here. Better passing game. I think they're both really good. You probably have Offensive Player of the Year Cooper Kupp on one side, Offensive Rookie of the Year Jamar Chase on the other side. Where are we going with this? What are we thinking for the Super Bowl?
Before I give you my pick, little trivia here. Who did Sean McVay win High School State Player of the Year over when he was a senior?
Tell me it's Joe Burrow. Please tell me it's Joe Burrow.
No,
who is
Sean McVay won it over Calvin Johnson.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Jeez.
they were the same. They were both in Georgia, and Sean McVay won Player of the Year in the state of Georgia over Calvin Johnson. So little trivia there for you. Look, this Super Bowl is going to be, I think, the most fun I've had in a Super Bowl in a long time. There's no Tom Brady. I don't hate either team. I have no affiliation to either team, and there are 600 different storylines that I care about. This is the most entertaining I'm going to be in the Super Bowl because if the Rams win, I'm hyped for Matt Stafford.
Yep.
I'm hyped for Odell Beckham. I feel bad for Baker Mayfield. There's a lot of great things, obviously, on the Rams side, right? If the Bengals win, that is a massive, unbelievable storyline that we end up seeing. And that is going to not only be a great headline and a storyline, but it's also going to change, I think, how teams are drafting, right? We see this happen all the time. Pro sports are a copycat system where if one thing works, they're like, maybe we don't need that lineman. Let's go ahead and get another playmaker here for our young quarterback, or let's go risk it on a young quarterback and then get another playmaker on top of that. I want to see teams risk it and try to replicate and either fail or do something great or whatever that essentially may be. This is a long-winded way to say.
Hold on, whoa, don't
Okay.
don't give me the official prediction. Give me the
bad.
breakdown. We'll do the.
Okay.
I'm going to do the prediction. The prediction is going to be a thing. Like I'm going to make sure that the prediction is on record because I know how you get sometimes. You like to go long-winded and then bury it under whatever it is. So if you're wrong, we can't find it on a clip. So we're
my
clear.
predictions are absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, sure they are all the time. Only when you hustle, apparently. So the Rams are a 4-point favorite in this game. The over/under, as it stands right now, is 48.5, which is good, not great for a Super Bowl. I would love to see I want to see a Super Bowl with over 50 as an over/under. Honestly, yeah. I want to see a shootout, and I think one of the reasons is I think they think the Rams defense is going to hold tight. I've talked about this multiple times before. The Rams defense is predicated on Jalen Ramsey taking one receiver off the field, and then the front seven getting to the quarterback. The Aaron Donalds, the Von Millers of the world getting to the quarterback. Cincinnati has a problem blocking for Joe Burrow, but even so, Titans 9 sacks. They have won despite that. I think what's going to happen here is Joe Mixon is going to have a very good game to at least keep Von Miller off of Burrow for a little bit. If the Cincinnati Bengals have to pass and Burrow's got to go over 300 yards, this sounds crazy for what he's done throughout the playoffs because that's essentially what he's been doing throughout the playoffs. I think the Bengals are going to be in trouble. If, for some reason, Ramsey takes Chase out of the lineup and then T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd are open for any amount of time, the Rams are in trouble. I love the Cincinnati matchup of their defense against the Rams offense. I think Cincinnati matches up extremely well, better than a lot of teams. Cooper Kupp's going to get his yards. They're not going to put one player on Cooper Kupp. They're going to have pretty much a highlight, the Madden highlight, where whenever in zone coverage, people are going to keep an eye on Cooper Kupp. Tyler Higbee, I think, is playing this game. I'm not sure if he's going to be 100%. That's a big weapon for them not to have. And I think Cincinnati knows enough about Odell Beckham Jr. that they know that as long as they cover him over the top, I think he'll be a non-factor. I really think Cincinnati has the opportunity to be a thorn in Matthew Stafford's side, especially a guy like Trey Hendrickson on the outside.
I love Cincinnati's front four. They aren't talked about enough.
Yep.
To your point, I think they are a severely underrated group that are going to wreak, I think, a lot of havoc on that offensive line for the Rams. The Rams, I think, don't have a bad offensive line, but I think, again, they have gotten so much pressure on teams consistently that I really just feel like even if it's just a little bit, Stafford has, of all the players on either team, the most pressure on him right now, right? No one is going to be looking at Odell Beckham Jr. and saying like, oh, why didn't you carry this team? Sure, they're going to look at his yards and things of that nature, but if the Rams lose, it's going to be blamed on Matt Stafford unless he absolutely balls out. And I think he knows that, and he knows that he has been in NFL Siberia, for my Siberia references out there, and he knows that this is maybe his only chance he's ever going to get to go and win a Super Bowl, because the Rams are built like the 49ers way back in the early 90s when they had that one season when it was like Ken Norton Jr. and they essentially went all in on 1 year. They ended up winning, if I remember correctly. But the Rams are built very much like that. So this is a sort of a one in, maybe done for a lot of these guys. I do think, though, that Odell is going to be a factor. I think Odell is going to be across the middle more than we think. I think Cooper Kupp is going to be used as a decoy sometimes to get Odell. And then once Odell has enough yards to make him a threat, I guess, to Cincinnati's secondary, they're going to be hitting Cooper Kupp, and he's going to be going and making Eli Apple look like he fell down the tree. It's not going to be good for him.
All right, all of that being said, tell me what you think. Hold on, the button, there it is. There's the button. Tell me what you think. Final score and the winner of Super Bowl 56 is going to be.
I thought about it a lot. My original prediction before the playoffs started was the Rams were going to lose to the Chiefs. And after seeing this matchup and looking at a lot of stuff, I think that the Rams are still going to lose to the Cincinnati Bengals 27-24. McPherson hits the game winner to seal this one up, as he's done every single round pretty much for Cincinnati. McPherson is a big-time player, hits an absolute boot. It barely goes in, and Cincinnati's out there drinking hot gravy in the streets.
For the love of all is holy, please don't give that to Swami. I'm tired of hearing Swami talk about McPherson. For me personally, again, the over-under is 48.5. It's a 4-point spread in favor of the Rams. I think the final score is 30-17. Cincinnati Bengals. I think they have a problem for Matthew Stafford defensively. I think it ends up being a 2-score game. I don't think it's a 2-score game the entire time. I think Burrow and the Bengals make better halftime adjustments, which is crazy because I think Sean McVay is an incredibly better coach than Zach Taylor, but I think the assistants in Cincinnati are way better than the assistants over in LA. I do think LA's window is much smaller than Cincinnati's. I think this starts a dynasty in the AFC North for Cincinnati that you and I are going to hate for a very, very long time as Steeler and Ravens fans. But I got 30-17, just missing the over-under. So under, okay. And I think Cincinnati wins 30-17.
I'm genuinely shocked that you and I both agree the Bengals are going to win, which means they're going to lose.
You don't bet against Joey Burr, okay?
Yeah,
I've learned you don't.
Rams win.
You don't bet against Joey Burr. No. See, chat. Remember he did this. Because he'll cut out the part where he goes, no, Rams win, and like forget about all the other stuff that he just talked about for the last 10 minutes.
No, I think Bengals still win. I'm still sick of my 27-24. McPherson hits the game winner, but I am blaming you if they happen to lose and saying that you jinxed them. So
don't forget, by the way, the ultimate mush. The ultimate mush has already predicted the Rams. Just so we're clear, the guy,
the ultimate mush?
The guy, the dude that is always wrong, Fade Tim. You always fade Tim. He picked the Rams. I'm just saying. Listen, I'm not calling out other creators, but listen, Tatman picked Rams, man. I'm not going anywhere near him.
Bengals in 4. Yeah, Bengals in 4. Yeah.
All right, wrap us up. So, by the way, next week when we come back, obviously Super Bowl wrap up. We'll talk about any more big trades that happen. I think GG and I both hope that Harden gets traded because I'd really love to see the 76ers with James Harden, Joel Embiid, and Tobias Harris. I really want to see that squad together. We'll see if that happens. Next week also, I have a weird feeling we're going to start getting a lot more MLB The Show news, so be ready for that. Next Wednesday at 8 p.m. And then if you're on your podcast apps, obviously you're listening to this Thursdays around 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern. Talk to me, GGB.
Yeah, great episode, Mills. I know we've been teasing you guys a lot about, new co-hosts and some other, why did I say hosts like that? The new co-hosts and some other things that we have coming down the pipeline. We have not forgot about that. We're not just old people who happen to forget things. That information is coming very soon. We are just working towards being able to solidify some stuff. And then once we solidify that, we'll give you guys a hard, firm, and fast date that we can essentially stick to. And then we'll have a pizza party. Don't judge me for using that.
It's a lot of hard
We'll
stuff. It's like
party.
stiffening, hard, difficult. What's going on over there? What's wrong with you, man?
Podcast is rated R now, but we'll have more information on that soon. We'll have a firm deadline that we can essentially go.
Wait, would that make me the rated R superstar? That's me, right? Hey, our new host knows that reference.
That was a teaser. Mills, I'll give you props. That was actually a pretty good
See?
teaser. But yeah, new host, some big changes coming to the show, and I think you guys will love what we have coming. But more on that soon. We'll get you guys a date and deadline for that information very soon. But anyways, if you haven't already, make sure you follow the stream right here on Twitch, Overplayed Pod. If you're on your podcast app, give us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice little comment. Roast Mills in the comments as well. That's always appreciated. But you know the deal. Be safe, be smart, tell somebody you love them. Catch you guys in the next one.
Ciao.